can't do it. I find salsa a bit easier. But anyway, there's two sessions today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and what brings me here today. But I was asked to talk on leadership and then to talk on sort of the publicity game. But what I'd like to do is strip that language down. Am I alright going this fast, by the way? Is it, in terms of translation, is it okay? Okay, cool.
Not so fast, a bit.
Yeah, okay. See, I thought I knew in here. So there's two sessions. One is on leadership, one on the publicity game. But really, in my language, what I want to talk about is external things and internal things. Yeah, because I think internal is more important than what you do. Internal is who you are. External is what you do. And what you do will only come as a result of who you are, and understanding both who you are internally and who you are within the context of the global village as well. So this first session is really about internal stuff, and it's about who you are. But obviously, it would be pretty useless unless I tell you a bit about myself first, other than being an avid cognac drinker. I've also done some other good bits of work and some bad bits of work. So I'm 25 now. When I was 19, I started my first company in England. It was managing people's ads on Google. Who uses Google? Does anybody not use Google? What do you use? No, but if you don't use Google, what do you use a search engine? Yandex. Okay. I need to check this Yandex out. I don't know Yandex. It's Yandex. Yandex. Well, that's probably, I won't find it if I look for Yandex. Cool, I'll check it. So we used to manage people's ads on Google. When you do a search on the right-hand side, you get these sponsored links. Those sponsored links are what give Google their $150 billion. And we were taking the crumbs off their table. We realized that there was a small opportunity to run a business that helped people advertise better on Google. So after working for a guy for 6 months when I left school, I worked with him for 6 months. I became a sales guy, a very bad sales guy, and then I realized to save my job, I needed to think of a way to keep my job, otherwise I'd be fired. So I thought, okay, how about you let me recruit a sales team? So he let me recruit 4 other guys. It was a small company. So I recruited 4 guys. They worked under me. They were, just 30 years old. I was like 18 with my little tie, like hoping for the best. And that was very successful. The problem was, after about 6 months, we had a leadership disagreement, in as much as when I would interview somebody, I would give them commitment, relational commitment. You'll get 3 months trial, and then we'll see what happens after that. What he would do is come back to the office and just fire my staff if he didn't see the numbers on the board. And obviously I had a problem with this. We talked about it, we disagreed, and he pretty much asked me to leave. So after 6 months of learning about this business, I was then had no job. And so obviously I decided to see if I could make it on my own. So I was really forced into this kind of startup business world. Incidentally, I'm still now very good friends with him, but we just don't really work together. So at 19, I went back to my parents' house and sitting in my boxer shorts every morning, picking up the house phone, dialing with withheld number, calling companies, seeing if they would let me manage their AdWords, their advertising for them. It grew over the next 2.5 years to about 20 staff in the UK. We outsourced about 3 jobs to Bulgaria. It was very successful with friends. It was fun with pool tables and dartboards and massage chairs, and very like Google, and it was a great, great time. Then I had the opportunity to sell the company, and it's now gone on 4 years since then. Since then, it's now over 100 staff, most of which are in India, and it's done very well. What I want to come to is, after I sold the company, I was not a millionaire, but I had enough money to, pay off my property and have a bit of freedom to choose what do I want to do. And so I decided to travel that year, for the next year or two, to really focus on the question, what needs to be done? And somebody had told me, and it's irrelevant if it's true or not true, but somebody had told me these energy windmills, you know the energy windmills?
Yep.
Somebody had told me that they take more energy to create and install than they will ever reproduce in their life cycle. Yeah? And this scared me, not because I'm passionate about windmills, but because I thought, if I spend the rest of my life peddling an idea or a thought or a way of life that when I'm 60, 70, 80, find out was completely useless, that's a scary idea for me. So I wanted to spend a year traveling, meeting the people at the top of their games to understand whether or not I was going to be doing the right work in my life, if that makes any sense. So I went to America and I spent time with Jane Goodall, who's famous for the work she's done with primates. I spent time with Jamie Drummond, who started the One campaign. It's a campaign against poverty with Bono from U2. I spent time with leaders in their field, and I asked them all the same question: what needs to be done? Because what needs to be done is a very simple question, which we'll come on to in the second session. But I also did a lot of soul searching around who I was, internally, what my personal vision was, and how I can fit into the big ecosystem of the world, the big puzzle. Because obviously we can't solve stuff on our own, but we do need to play our part. So I actually went to South Africa and Brazil, and I set up the same model of business with partners that I met out there. I just got on a plane. It was a very stupid thing to do, to be honest with you, but it was exciting. I got on a plane to South Africa. I didn't know anybody there because I was born in Johannesburg, but moved when I was a baby back to England. Got on a plane, went and started meeting people, hanging out. I guess the one helpful thing for me was kind of the extended Christian network around the world. You know, if you're part of any kind of, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant that it's a Christian thing, but just any kind of the ISIS stuff. Is it ISIS? Is that how you say it?
ISIS.
ISIS. That's like a network, you know, you can find relationships through that, and that is helpful, but it was still a very stupid thing to do. But after much, much pain and trouble and trying again and again, we did manage to make a business work. In the first instance, the thing that was most exciting to me, so South Africa, I don't know how much you know about South Africa, but obviously it's had a lot of political turmoil. It's been very tricky. Race relations are very complicated. And I went there, and I've never been anywhere like Cape Town. It's the most beautiful, but the most broken place I know. And there's so much problem. The gap between the rich and the poor is ridiculous. The people there, the rich people are richer than the people I know in London, and the poor people, it's crazy the conditions that they're living in. So I began to think about, what can I do in this context? And actually what I felt was, I can't trust the government to do anything. I can't trust that any macro shift is going to happen. But what I can do, what I have in my hands, is this business model to be able to try to create relationships that go across the borders. So a very silly example, in my house, when I bought my house in London, the churches in the area were very separate, whilst being very local. There was the church in Leatherhead and Bookham, 10 minutes away from each other, Ashted, and a couple of others. They were all very separate. And I think this is ridiculous for the church to be so insular and keep within their walls. You know, if the church is the church, it's the church. It's not this church or that church. You're all followers of Christ. Separate conversation altogether. But the point was, I spoke to the leaders of the churches and got nowhere. But what I ended up doing when I moved into my house was invite key people from each of the different churches to come and live with me in my house. And what happened was amazing. We just began to be friends. We just drank together, played music together, we're friends. But what happens is it begins to blur the lines and messes up the structure and the systems that have been embedded in the communities. So with that kind of knowledge, I thought, well, what if I can go and recruit Afrikaner, white girl, an English white guy, two teachers that have been run out of, they had this thing called xenophobia, where we got really aggressive towards foreign nationals. These were Zambians, so they were under pressure at that time. Invited them to work with me, alongside a girl from Alanga, which is a very poor township, And the idea was if we can just work together and create relationships, maybe this will begin to blur some of the lines in a small way. And it's not the answer to the problem, but it's just an example and hopefully an encouragement to others. The truth of the matter is that there wasn't enough leadership in the business over the next year or two to make that work. I wasn't fully committed to the project. I thought, I'll go in, I'll land the business model, I'll leave in 8 weeks' time, and somebody else can run it. And I think the problem is, with our egos, sometimes some of us have inflated egos. The reality of our skills and our experience is here, and we think we're here. And some of us, the reality of our experience and skills is here, and we think we're here. The truth is that neither a superior or an inferior complex about your ego is helpful for the world. And the reality was, there are still some things I'm awful at doing, I'm really bad at doing. But I did realize that one of the things that I possess that some other guys that I work with don't have is the ability to glue people together even through troublesome or tough times. So I had to learn that about myself. There are other things that I thought I was better at in life that I've realized I'm not as good as I thought as well. So it's not just one way. But anyway, I try not to go into too much detail, but I just thought this might be relevant. I came back from there, went to Brazil, did the same. It was fine. It's fine. I gave it to the local business guys, and there's now 3 businesses have sprung up as a result of me sharing that knowledge with them. And I came back. I worked on a program with kids who have been in gangs and gone to prison. We created an idea called Mustard, which is the problem with gangs is that it's all about identity. The reason that these guys are in gangs is because they haven't got the family unit at home, the sense of belonging or identity. So the issue with trying to tell someone not to be in their gang anymore is that you're basically telling them, strip away your identity and we're not going to give you any other identity. And that's not very successful. So what we tried to do was say, instead of splitting them up, we said, let's just take this gang and start a company with the gang. Just change the product that they're selling. Instead of selling an illegal and unhelpful product, cocaine, we'll try and help them sell a product or do services that are actually helpful for the community. And again, medium level of success, I would say, in that. It worked for the guys we worked with, but it wasn't strong enough. Again, it needed such strong leadership that I wasn't sitting in the driving seat. I was helping to structure it. But it needed stronger leadership than we had to be able to scale and repeat it 100 times across the country.